Hello students. So now once again Hornbill Silk Road. So this is the second video. We have already done first video and we have seen how the writer along with his two companions, one driver and one we can say translator, okay, he started his journey for Mount Kailash. Page number 76. Aswath, this is third last paragraph. A swath of the white stuff lay across the track in front of us. If you remember in the last video, I told that everybody, we can say, got out of the car, okay, because there was snow. A swath of white stuff lay across the track in front of us, stretching for maybe 15 meters before it petered out and the dirt trail reappeared. Now, what they realized that near about 15 meters, there was snow and snow only. There was nothing else, only snow. Okay, after that only the dirt trail was there. The dirt road was there. The snow continued on either side of us, smoothing the abrupt bank on the upslope side. The bank was too steep that for our vehicle to scale, so there was no way around the snow patch. I joined Daniel as Seaton stepped onto encrusted snow and began to slither and slit forward, stamping his foot from time to time to ascertain how sturdy it was. I looked. Now what happened? Actually now it was snowy area, near about for 15 meters there was snow only. So what Seaton did, he was out of the car and he started first of all walking, and he was trying to realize or trying to stamp his foot on the snow, because he wanted to see whether this snow is real snow or this is a superficial snow, that and then there could be a hole in beneath the snow, and naturally if they take the car from that route then there could be some major accident. So he just wanted first of all to ascertain this thing. I looked at my wristwatch. We were at 5,210 meters above sea level. So this was the level he noticed. The snow didn't look too deep to me, but the danger wasn't its depth, Daniel said, so much as its icy top layer. Now he says, Daniel only told, that it's not that we are taking taking stock of this area and we are trying to see whether this is very deep snow or no. He says, no, this is not. Actually here, this area is very slippery and I just want to see whether we can do something, otherwise we may meet with some accident. Okay, the car can turn over. He suggested as we saw Seaton grab handful of dirt and fling them across the frozen surface. We both pitched in, and when the snow was spread with soil, Daniel and I stayed out of the vehicle to lighten Seaton's load. He backed up and drove towards the dirty snow, eased the car onto its icy surface and slowly drove its length without apparent difficulty. So that few steps they walked along with the car so that the Seaton could drive the car when there is no one else in the car, means to lighten the weight of the car. That's why they stayed out of the car for a few steps. Then the smooth journey again started. 10 minutes later, we stopped at another blockage. Not good, sir, Seaton announced as he jumped out again to survey the scene. So 10 minutes smooth riding was there, then again they saw some danger. This time he decided to try and drive round the snow. Okay, there was snow once again, but naturally now maybe they could not go back or come back, change the route. So that's why they decided to try and drive round the snow. The slope was steep and studded with major rocks, but somehow Seaton negotiated them, means he managed to drive his four-wheel drive vehicle, lurking from one obstacle to the next. In so doing, he cut off one of the hairpin bends, very sharp bend. Okay, he managed that also, regaining the trail further up where the snow had not drifted. I checked my watch again as we continued to climb in the bright sunshine. We crept past 5,400 meters and my head began to throb horribly. Again he checked the height. Now you in when you are, wherever you are noting down certain names, here you can note down the height also, because you may get this question that at this height what happened, at this height what happened. So you will remember this way. So first height was 5210, and this is 5400 meters, and my head began to throb horribly. I took gulps from my water bottle, which is supposed to help a rapid ascent. We finally reached the top of the pass at 5515 meters. It was marked by a large cairn of rocks festooned with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flags. I think in hilly area you might have seen. Okay, so this is what they saw. Cairn of rocks means pile of rocks they saw. ढेर देखा उन्होंने. We all took a turn round the cairn in a clockwise direction, as is the tradition. So according to the tradition only, they took a round, clockwise round. Okay. And Seaton checked the tires of his vehicle. We stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top, which emitted a loud hiss. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand. It sounded dangerous to me. Maybe, sir. Seaton laughed, but no smoking. So, drivers, you might have seen when you are in the hilly area, even you might have seen your drivers doing so. So, writer said that I was feeling that maybe this is something again dangerous, but Seaton said no worry. My headache soon cleared as we carried down the other side of the pass. Carry down means when you are moving very fast, abruptly fast. Okay, so he said, now I was feeling better. It was 2 o'clock by the time we stopped for lunch. We ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent, part of a work camp erected beside a dry salt lake. Actually, some work was going on, so there was some tents, and there only they ate noodles, hot noodles they got to eat. The plateau is pock-marked. Underline these words, pock-marked with, pock-marking we can say covering, okay, with hollow marks, or we can say left out marks. So pock-marked with salt flats and brackish lakes. Brackish is very salty, okay, and salt flats we can say low flat areas. With salt flats and brackish lakes, okay, means very salty water. There it was. Vestiges of the Tithe Ocean. I think in the geography you might have read about Tithe Ocean, so we are not going to go in detail. Okay, so some portion, some vestiges were left of that ocean. Okay, that's why the water over there was very salty. It was part of that ocean, which bordered Tibet before the great continental collision that lifted it skyward. This one was a hive of activity. Men with pickaxes and shovels trudging back and forth in their long sheepskin coats and salt-encrusted boots. All wore sunglasses against the glare as a steady stream of the blue trucks emerged from the blindingly wild lake laden with piles of salt. So naturally, salt gatherers we can say were there. They were working and they were collecting the salt, and the salt was being put in the trucks. So loads of trucks were there. So this is what they saw, and there only they took their lunch, we can say, kind of lunch, hot noodles. By late afternoon, we had reached the small town of Hor. Now another place, Hor, very important Hor place. You will get certainly a question on Hor. By late afternoon, we had reached the small town of Hor, back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Daniel, who was returning to Lhasa, found a ride in a truck, so Seaton and I bade him farewell outside a tire repair shop. So from here, from Hor, his one friend, okay, though he was there from the very beginning, now he was coming back. Daniel was coming back. Now there were two left, okay, he and his friend, that driver also, okay. So Daniel was back, and Seaton was there now with him. We had suffered 2 punctures, so now they stopped in front of a tire repair shop because they had suffered 2 punctures in the quick succession on the drive down from the salt lake, and Seaton was eager to have them fixed since they left him with no spares. So now Seaton was eagerly waiting, or we can say searching for some tire repair shop, and suddenly when he stopped there only because we were now having two punctured tires. Besides, the second tire he had changed had been replaced by the one that was as smooth as my bald head. Though they had changed the second tire also, okay, but now the second tire was very bald, very old tire. That's why Seaton was anxious that the tire should be repaired soon. Hor was now the description of Hor. One question you may get. Hor was a grim, miserable place. There was no vegetation whatsoever, just dust and rocks, liberally scattered with years of accumulated refuse. So this is the area. It seemed as if for many many years this place has become a place for the refuge only. Accumulated, इकट्ठी होती जा रही है बहुत सालों से यहाँ पर गंद, कूड़ा, which was unfortunate given that the town sat on the shore of Lake Mansarovar. He said, I was feeling that this is really very unfortunate, ironical thing that the town is on the bank of Lake Mansarovar, but the town is very dirty town because here there is no vegetation. Okay, rather this is only refuse. Tibet's most venerated stretch of water. Naturally, this area was very respected, we can say, area. The Lake Mansarovar, people, had this, like we in India, we have, respect for Ganga. In the same way, people over there, they have respect for Lake Mansarovar, but still, the condition of Hor was pathetic. Venerated stretch of water, ancient Hindu and Buddhist cosmology pinpoints Mansarovar as the source of four great Indian rivers, the Indus, the Ganges, the Sutlej, and the Brahmaputra. Actually, only the Sutlej flows from the lake, but the headwaters of the others all rise thereby on the flanks of Mount Kailash. And I was eager to forge ahead. So he said, I was eager to go because I was really not very happy to see the condition of Hor. I was really not happy. So he said, I just wanted to leave that place at the earliest, but I had to wait. Seaton told me to go and drink some tea in the Hor's only cafe, which, like all the other buildings in town, was constructed from badly painted concrete and had 3 broken windows. So here this cafe, which was the only cafe, it was not very, very beautiful looking cafe. It was not a beautiful building. It was old building, okay, and there were 3 windows, but all 3 windows were broken windows. The good view of the lake through one of them helped to compensate for the drought. So though this building, this cafe was not very good place, but he said even then through one of the windows there was very good scenery, okay, a lake I could see, okay. He said it was enough for me to at least have something good to watch. I was served by a Chinese youth in military uniform who spread the grease around on my table with a filthy rag before bringing me a glass and a thermos of tea. So actually one of the waiters, he came and he, in order to clean the table, he was having one piece of cloth and he cleaned the table with that piece of cloth. But he said, I saw that cloth itself was so dirty that it felt as if, it seemed that the table was now more dirty after he tried to clean it. Half an hour later, Seaton relieved me from my solitary confinement and we drove past a lot more rocks and rubbish westwards out of town towards Mount Kailash. And now he said after half an hour, Seaton came back and again we started our journey for the Mount Kailash. My experience in Hor came as a stark contrast. Now this is important paragraph. Again you may get this, we can say, separate question. He said, what I saw in Hor, it was very much different from what I had read in the books when other people had written about their experiences of Hor. So now here he is talking about 2 experiences. My experience in Hor came as a stark contrast to accounts I had read of earlier travelers' first encounters with Lake Mansarovar. He said 2 people I had read, okay, about their experience of Hor and Lake Mansarovar. They had written something else and I saw something else. Ekai Kawaguchi, a Japanese monk who had arrived there in 1900, was so moved by the sanctity of the lake that he burst into tears. He had written that when he came over there and he saw the Lake Mansarovar, he saw the pristine waters of Lake Mansarovar, he said he got emotional. But he said, now when I saw this Lake Mansarovar, there was nothing like that. And then, a couple of years later, the hallowed waters had a similar effect on Sween Haddon, a Swede who wasn't prone to sentimental outburst. He says, then, after a few years, the same hallowed water, that shallow water, that sacred water, it was having the same kind of experience on that person also who was from Sweden. Okay, he was also, he said, though he was not very emotional kind of person, even then he had become very emotional to see the crystal clean, pristine waters. But he said, when I saw this Lake Mansarovar, I was really not very, very happy, because rather I was very sad to see the condition, okay, of this Lake Mansarovar. I think we should stop here only. Next chapter we will do in the next video. Thank you.